As the moving truck pulled away, leaving a cloud of dust in its wake, the last thing I expected to see was my mother-in-law, Marjorie, stepping out with a suitcase and a smug smile. "Hope you don't mind, dear, but I've decided to move in." I stood frozen in disbelief as Marjorie strode up the front walkway of our new home, as if she owned the place. Just moments ago, Theo and I were kissing passionately, thrilled to finally move into our dream home after years of scrimping and saving. Now his mother was on our doorstep, suitcase in hand, ready to crash the party. "Surprise!" Marjorie sang, breezing past me into the foyer. "Theo, be a dear and get my bags." I followed her inside, watching in shocked silence as Theo happily carried in her luggage. "Isn't this great, babe?" he grinned. "Mom's gonna live with us? Now you'll have help around the house." My hands clenched into fists. I had explicitly told Theo I did not want his mother moving in with us. We had gone over this. I took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "Can I talk to you for a minute, Theo?" I said tightly, pulling him into the kitchen. Marjorie was already making herself at home, inspecting the rooms. "This is our first day in our new home," I hissed. "You can't just invite someone to live with us without asking me." Theo waved a hand. "Oh, come on, it's just my mom. She's excited about the new place, too. Don't worry about it." I stared at him in disbelief. "Worry about it? This is unacceptable, Theo. We've talked about this. I don't want anyone else living here." Theo's smile faded, his eyes flashing. "Well, I already told Mom she could stay, and as the man of the house, it's my decision." He turned and strode out of the room, leaving me speechless. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the anger and anxiety churning inside me. This wasn't how things were supposed to be. Theo and I were supposed to celebrate our beautiful new home together. Instead, his mother had swooped in uninvited, acting like she owned the place. And Theo, as usual, refused to take my concerns seriously. I found Marjorie in the guest bedroom, critically eyeing the freshly painted walls. "Well, I suppose this will have to do," she sniffed. "Though the lighting isn't ideal. Theo said I could have this room, yes?" My fingernails dug into my palms. I forced a tight smile. "Marjorie, this isn't a good time. Theo and I weren't prepared." Marjorie cut me off with an icy stare. "Why? Because I didn't ask your permission." She let out a grating laugh. "You forget, my son owns this house too. I have as much right to be here as you do." Hot anger flared through me. "How dare she?" I opened my mouth to respond, but she breezed past me, calling for Theo. I stood alone in the guest room, shock and rage making my hands tremble. This was supposed to be my haven, my refuge. Instead, Theo's mother had invaded and stuck her flag in the soil. A war was coming, and I refused to surrender. The next morning, I shuffled bleary-eyed to the kitchen to make my usual pot of dark roast. To my surprise and irritation, Marjorie had beaten me there. "Well, good morning, sunshine," she crowed, wafting the bitter smell of her weak tea my way. "I made breakfast for my two favorite people. Dig in." I stared at the sad spread on the counter, limp bacon, rubbery eggs, and some species of grain mush. Theo ambled in, hair sticking up every which way. "Thanks, Ma," he said through a mouthful of food. "This is awesome." I poured myself a strong coffee. "I have an early meeting. I need to get ready." As I dressed for work, I fumed over Marjorie's nerve. This was my kitchen, not hers. And that breakfast. A toddler could have done better. At least at the office, I could have some peace. After an endless day of meetings, I arrived home bone-tired, wanting nothing more than a hot bath. But when I walked into the bedroom, I stopped short. Marjorie had completely rearranged the furniture and hung heavy drapes that blocked out the warm afternoon light. This was my sanctuary, my space. How dare she? I marched out to the patio where I could hear Theo and his mother chatting. "Marjorie, you can't just rearrange our bedroom without asking," I said sharply. Theo glanced up from his beer. "Oh yeah, Mom helped me move some things around so she could set up her sewing area." I froze. "Her what?" "For my quilting, dear." Marjorie gave me a patronizing smile. "Don't worry, I left room for the bed." You set up your sewing equipment in our bedroom?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Do you understand how inappropriate that is?" "Oh, honestly, Alara," Marjorie sniffed. "It's just a room. No need to be so territorial, right, Theo?" "She's got a point, babe." Theo took a nonchalant swig of beer, ignoring my reddening face. I was literally speechless with rage. This was absolutely the last straw. I retreated to the kitchen before I could say something I'd regret. We needed to have a serious talk about finances tonight, whether Theo wanted to or not. His spendthrift habits and the falling stock market had me worried about money for the first time. Over dinner, I broached the subject as diplomatically as I could. Theo, I think we should go over our budget tonight. Between the house and Marjorie, expenses seem high. Theo waved his fork dismissively. Our finances are fine, babe. I make good commissions. Even so, we made a plan. For heaven's sake, Alara, stop nagging the boy. Marjorie interrupted. We're having a nice dinner. I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth hurt. I need to know where we stand, Theo. We're not kids anymore. We can't just spend recklessly. Let's sit down tonight and... Enough! Theo snapped, banging his fist on the table. I jumped. Marjorie looked smug. Anger burned in Theo's eyes as he glowered at me. I'm in control of the finances here. All you need to worry about is keeping house and looking pretty. His lip curled in a sneer. Understood. My heart pounded as we stared at each other. Without a word, I stood, grabbed my keys, and walked out, his mocking laughter echoing behind me. I drove around for hours trying to calm down before finally heading home. The lights were off when I crept in, except for the flickering blue glow of the television. I hoped Theo had gone to bed, but when I passed by the living room, I saw his silhouette still reclined in his armchair. There you are, he said gruffly. Come watch this show with me. I hesitated, still upset from our argument. It's late. I should get some sleep. Theo clicked off the TV and swiveled to face me, his eyes drilling into mine. We need to talk. I braced myself for another fight as I perched on the couch. Theo templed his fingers, staring at me ominously. I've been thinking, he said. You've been very selfish lately. My mouth fell open. Selfish? How could you say? He held up a hand. Hear me out. We have this beautiful new home now, yet all you do is complain. My mother is here out of the kindness of her heart, but instead of being grateful, you whine about finances that are under control. He leaned forward. It's disruptive and disrespectful. I blinked rapidly, outraged he was twisting this around on me. Theo, I've supported you in everything, including buying this house, stretch ourselves thin. But I'm worried now. We never see eye to eye on money, and between Marjorie interfering in everything. Theo's fist crashed down on the side table, making me jump. That's exactly what I mean. My mother has done nothing but help since she arrived, and I've told you I'm handling finances. He rose from the chair, looming over me. I'm losing patience here, Alara. This arrangement clearly isn't working for you. His eyes bored into mine. So let's make something very clear. I am head of this household. You will show me respect, and you will accept my decisions, including my mother living here. Understood? I stared up at him, my heart pounding. I wanted to scream at him, but the cold look in his eyes frightened me. Jaw clenched, I managed a terse nod. Seemingly satisfied, Theo stalked off to bed. I remained frozen on the couch, adrenaline coursing through me. Only when I heard his rumbling snores echo from down hall did I allow angry tears spill down my cheeks. How had my marriage deteriorated into this? Theo had never spoken to me that way before, so aggressive and intimidating. I thought of Marjorie's smug face at dinner, and my hands curled into fists. This was all her influence. She was poisoning Theo against me. I was sure of it. That horrible woman had infiltrated my home, destroyed my sanctuary, turned my life upside down. In that moment, the last shreds of love I had for my husband seemed to shrivel up inside me. As I crept off to bed alone, steeling myself against his blistering snores, the beginnings of a plan took root in my mind. If Theo refused to choose me over his toxic mother, then I would choose myself. It was time to take back control of my life, no matter what it took. Marjorie Jennings may have won this battle by cunning and manipulation, but I would win the war. Over the next few days, I walked on eggshells around Theo, keeping my head down. Let him think I was cowed. Behind the scenes, I began preparations for my escape. I called my lawyer and filed a quitclaim for the new house, securing my partial ownership. It had been a battle to get Theo to even put my name on the deed. Little did he know that decision would come back to bite him. Next, I secretly contacted a forensic accountant, giving her access to all our financial records. 2 days later, she confirmed my worst fears. Theo had drained most of our savings into risky investments. We owed nearly double our income in credit card debt. And if his commissions stopped flowing like they had been, we'd be bankrupt within 6 months. My hands shook with anger and vindication as I emailed the evidence to myself. No wonder Theo refused to discuss money. He knew this house of cards could implode any day. I had been pleading with him for years to budget better. Now we were on the brink of financial ruin, all because of his arrogance. That night, over another miserable dinner, I decided to make one last appeal. "Theo, I saw the statements," I said quietly. "We're in serious trouble. We need to come up with a plan." Theo's face darkened. "Have you been snooping behind my back?" "I'm trying to help," I cried. "We could lose everything." "How dare you go over my head?" He rose slowly. Marjorie watched avidly. "After everything I provide, this is the thanks I get?" I shrank back, but stood my ground. "We can fix this, Theo, together, if you'll just listen." Theo flung his plate aside with a crash. "Get out." I froze. "What?" His fists clenched, eyes wild. "You heard me. Get out of my house." I backed away, heart hammering. This wasn't the man I loved. Without looking back, I fled upstairs, threw essentials into a suitcase, and locked myself in the bathroom, listening to Theo raging below as Marjorie attempted to soothe him. After an hour had passed, I crept downstairs to the darkened house. Slipping out the front door, I started my car and drove off into the night, resolved more than ever to take Theo down. I had tried being reasonable. I had pleaded, begged for compromise, but the time for talking was done. Over the next 2 days at a hotel, paid in cash, I met again with my lawyer and set things in motion. Using Theo's credit card information, I hired an investigator to dig deeper. What she uncovered made me sick. He had a whole second life hidden away. Mistresses, illegitimate debts, shady business dealings he'd kept hidden even from Marjorie. My heart turned to ice. This man was a stranger to me now, but he had crossed the wrong woman. Theo had no idea what was coming for him when those divorce papers hit. And Marjorie, I hoped she enjoyed the view from atop her high horse, because I was about to take her down too, once and for all. The battle lines were drawn, and I was playing for blood. After a week holed up in the hotel finalizing my plans, I knew I couldn't hide forever. It was time to return home and set the next phase in motion. I rehearsed what I would say countless times on the drive back. I had to get in, act normal, and get out again without raising suspicions. Quietly, I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. Voices rang out from the kitchen. Before I could sneak past, Marjorie appeared, blocking my path. Well, look who finally decided to show up," she snapped. Behind her, I could see Theo at the table, refusing to look at me. I stood taller. "Just picking up a few things. Then I'll be on my way." As I tried to brush past her, Marjorie grabbed my arm. "I don't think so. Time for a little chat, girlie." Shaking her off, I retreated to the bedroom with Marjorie on my heels. As I shoved clothes into a bag, she cornered me, arms crossed. "Let me make something abundantly clear," she hissed, jabbing her finger at me. "You will stop this childish tantrum nonsense and return home where you belong. My son has supported you long enough while you repay him with deceit." Adrenaline flooded my veins. I stepped closer until we were nose to nose. "You don't scare me," I said through gritted teeth. "This is still my house, too. Now get out of my way." I tried to push past her, but Marjorie shoved me backwards as hard as she could. I crashed painfully against the wall, bruising my shoulder. Shock reverberated through me. She had assaulted me in my own home. At that moment, something inside me snapped. This vile woman had taken everything from me, my dignity, my home, my marriage. Enough was enough. "I want you out," I said, my voice dangerous and low. "You have 1 hour to pack your things and leave this house." Marjorie's eyes widened in outrage. "How dare you?" "Theo," she screeched. "Did you hear how she spoke to me?" Heavy footsteps echoed down the hall. Before Theo could appear, I stepped forward until Marjorie had to crane her neck to look up at me. "If you ever touch me again, I will have you arrested," I promised. "You've overstayed your welcome. Get out now." Theo arrived at the doorway. When he heard Marjorie's wild accusations of my behavior, his face mottled red with fury. He seemed ready to explode, but before he could speak, I met his bulging eyes. "We need to discuss some things, privately." My voice was steel. With a huff, Marjorie stormed off. I could hear drawers slamming violently from down the hall as she packed. Meanwhile, Theo eyed me with clenched fists. I had to tread carefully, like defusing a bomb. In as calm a voice as I could muster, I issued an ultimatum. "I am moving forward with a divorce. You will communicate through my lawyer from now on." Theo's mouth fell open. "You spiteful he snarled. "You'll regret this." He turned and slammed his fist into the wall with a sickening crack. I didn't even flinch. "Send your threats to my legal team," I replied coolly before breezing past him with head held high. The plan was in motion. My counterattack had begun. Soon I heard Marjorie's muffled weeping as Theo consoled her. But I felt nothing at all. That bridge had been burned to ash a long time ago. Now all that was left was to raise Theo's house down upon him, and salt the earth besides. This was only the beginning. The divorce papers were delivered to Theo's office 2 days later. Within hours, the furious calls and emails started lighting up my phone. I ignored them all, letting them pile up. Finally, he resorted to showing up unannounced at my hotel. When I opened the door to his red, sweaty face, I felt nothing but cold satisfaction at catching him so off guard. "You think you can blindside me like this?" Theo raged. "I won't sign anything until we talk, alone. There's nothing left to say, it's over." Theo forced his way in, knocking the doorstop aside. I retreated to keep distance between us, poised to call security. "I know you set me up somehow," Theo hissed, prowling closer. "There's no way you uncovered all that other stuff legally." I scoffed. "Don't like seeing your dirty secrets on full display? Get out of my room." "Dirty secrets?" Theo bellowed, flecks of spit flying. "You mean hard choices I made to support our lifestyle after you chose a dead-end career?" His hypocrisy stoked my fury. "I told you over and over we were headed towards disaster, but all you ever cared about was stroking your own ego." I stepped closer, glaring into his eyes. "You reap what you sow. Consider this your wake-up call." With a guttural cry, Theo kicked over a chair. "Do you realize what you've done? My mother, in hysterics. My bosses, furious. You've destroyed my life, you deceitful." His verbal assault escalated to new, venomous heights, but I stood rooted in place. His insults and accusations washed over me, helpless to penetrate the ice around my heart. Part of me pitied this broken man crumbling before my eyes, his empire of lies collapsing all at once. But a bigger part felt victorious. When Theo finally paused his tirade, shoulders heaving, I spoke calmly. "I did warn you, over and over, but you didn't listen." I held his gaze steadily. "I had no choice but to take drastic steps. You'll come out of this better for it someday." Theo glared at me with raw hatred, twisting his features into a monstrous mask. In a low, quaking voice, he vowed bloody revenge, promised to fight me till the bitter end. But I saw the fear swirling in his eyes. Theo was out of allies, resources, and options. His downfall was sealed. With immense satisfaction, I watched Theo's hulking form retreat from the room, broken and diminished. The hotel door had barely shut behind him before I allowed a triumphant smile. Theo could kick and scream all he wanted now. He was a declawed beast without refuge, and I would show no mercy. In the following days, Theo's rare moments of lucidity were eclipsed by endless vitriolic voicemails, but he remained all bluster and no substance now. When I spoke to my lawyer, she confirmed Theo had signed the divorce papers with surprisingly little resistance. He knew full well the skeletons I could expose and had wisely folded. Checkmate. After everything I endured silently for so long, Theo's downfall felt gratifying and just. I watched with vindication as the life he had built through lies and manipulation fell away in tatters. Let him finally learn what rock bottom feels like. And his enabling mother now forced to face consequences too. Just desserts indeed. The hard part was over now. My new life and hard-won freedom awaited. With the divorce finalized, I wasted no time enacting the next phase of my plan. While Theo spiraled into depression, I was energized, seizing back control of my future. First things first, I needed to cut remaining ties by selling our house immediately. The housing market was still hot, and I knew exactly how to leverage that. I hired the best agent, ordered fancy staging, and listed the property at a premium. When Theo caught wind I was selling his precious house out from under him, the raging emails resumed. But it was too late. Without the means to retaliate further, he was neutered. To my immense satisfaction, a bidding war erupted the first week, and I soon had an excellent offer in hand. I scheduled the close date as soon as possible, wanting to salt the earth here for good. On moving day, I stopped by one last time to ensure Theo was fully out. The sight inside turned my stomach. Garbage cluttered the floors, holes gaped in the drywall, mirrors and windows were smashed. My beautiful home utterly destroyed out of spite. There in the wreckage stood Marjorie, hunched and unkempt, boxing a few last items. At the sight of me, her red-rimmed eyes flashed with impotent rage. "How could you do this to my son?" she croaked. "He loved you." I felt only icy pity for this fated woman before me. "Your son made his own poor choices. Now he finally faces consequences." Gesturing at the destruction surrounding us, I added, though clearly still some growing up to do. Marjorie sniffed with disdain. "We should have turned you out on the street years ago, you ungrateful leech. Theo always deserved better than the likes of you." Her delusion was almost impressive. I stepped forward and spoke slowly so she would absorb every word. "I earned every dollar that bought this house. Your son pillaged our finances without consulting me. I owe him nothing, but he'll owe me for a long, long time." Leaving Marjorie gaping in shock, I strode outside, where the buyers awaited, delightedly oblivious to the drama this house had weathered. As I handed over the keys, relief washed over me. What rotten memories lingered in these walls were Theo's burden now. I was free. Over the next year, I focused fully on advancing my career, rebuilding my credit, and nurturing new friendships. When news filtered back about Theo losing his lucrative job or Marjorie shuttering her home to move into a trailer, I felt only grim satisfaction at the domino effect catching up to them. Soon the settlement money trickled in. Combined with the house profits, I now had ample savings stashed away safely in my name only. Theo and Marjorie's financial security, by contrast, was shredded beyond repair through their own short-sighted hubris. I still look back on those painful years with Theo as a valuable awakening. No longer do I suppress my own needs to pacify others. I refuse to dim my light so weaker souls feel less threatened. The timid girl who silently endured Theo's cruelty died the day I walked out for good. She was reborn strong, steady, and proud. While Theo spirals ever downward, haunted by his folly, I thrive. And whenever frustration or doubt creep in, I need only conjure Marjorie's stunned expression when I handed over the house keys. Hard-won justice at long last served sweet. The wounds have healed. I stand tall, renewed. The best revenge indeed. 2 years after walking out, I hardly recognized the timid, brow-beaten woman I once was. I stand taller now, empowered, reveling in newfound independence. While my wounds have healed, Theo and Marjorie continue unraveling. With his reputation and finances in tatters, Theo could barely afford the court-ordered alimony. It was pitiful yet fitting how small he became in the wake of destruction left by his ego. No sympathy from me, though. He was captain of that sinking ship. Last I heard, Marjorie's mental state was deteriorating rapidly. Her golden child son reduced to deadbeat status. Karma, indeed. From her daughter, I learned Marjorie was forced to abandon her planned retirement village lifestyle due to Theo's financial crash. Instead, she lives isolated and tortured by bitterness. I won't lie, this news elicited grim satisfaction after years enduring Marjorie's relentless meddling and cruelty. Her entitled dreams torn asunder, long overdue penance earned. As for me, I reveled in new liberations. I soon sold my small flat and purchased a light-filled house closer to the city. I converted the third bedroom to a sleek home office befitting my recent promotion. Weeknights over wine, friends now fill rooms once occupied by Theo and Marjorie's swelling discontent, their ghosts long banished from my blossoming sanctuary. This new chapter filled rapidly with travel adventures, gallery openings, and cherished loved ones. My only lingering regret, wasted years pandering to egos best forgotten. Never again. With the last divorce check deposited, I gained full closure on that old life chapter. No loose ends, no lingering what-ifs. Only blue skies ahead. Pride swelled in my chest as I stood smiling before my new travel-inspired mural clutching signed divorce papers. Self-reclaimed on my own terms and joyfully beholden to none. Solvency restored, circle of supportive friends thriving, career zenith reached and counting. Marjorie would choke if she saw me now. But thoughts of her no longer elicit even ripples of emotion. I heard through the grapevine she languishes in her daughter's crowded basement now, the once regal matriarch reduced to pathetic freeloader. And Theo, he careens ever faster towards rock-bottom fate carved by his own hands. My lawyer keeps me informed of his periodic legal requests for more divorce settlement funds. Requests promptly rejected. I owe that man nothing but life lessons learned. Tonight, friends are coming over to toast my 38th birthday and new memoir draft completion. This home overflows with hard-won fruits of my labor alone now, no one permitted to harvest unearned. As I take one final gratified look in the hallway mirror, I muse over all who declared me the jealous, failed opportunist riding Theo's coattails. How satisfying to now stand wholly self-made and empowered in my dream home, financially secure and surrounded by authentic loved ones. My only concern? Perfecting the birthday cake recipe. Oh, how sweet it is.